country's oldest Jewish community. Everybody please stand up and give your kavod to Rabbi Dweck.
Thank you, Rabbi Cantor. Thank you, Rabbi Cantor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's a tremendous honor to be able to share some Divrei Torah with you this morning. I very much appreciate the opportunity to be able to share them with you. Hanukkah is less than a week away, Sunday night. And so I wanted to share with you thought on Hanukkah. The central figure for all of Hanukkah is essentially one. And that is the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is at the centerpiece of everything that involves Hanukkah. And I want to think on that with you this morning a bit and be able to draw from that something that I think and I hope every one of us can take coming into the Moed. Of course, the first Kohen Gadol was who? Aharon Kohen. Aharon Kohen, brother of Moshe. And Chazal say about Aharon that he had this unique quality, that there was something very special about him that was the central element of his kehuna gedolah, that allowed for him to be able to hold that high office. And that was that he was able not to have any kin'ah, any jealousy in his heart for anyone at all. It's the reason why he was able to hold the names of all of the Shiftei Yisrael on his heart. That's precisely what the Pasuk says, that they were to be worn not on his chest, but on his heart. And it's important for us to understand why. When Moshe Rabbeinu is at the burning bush, at the Sneh, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu hires him for the job, as you all know, he did not take the job very easily. He wanted to give it to somebody else. According to Chazal, this goes on, this negotiation between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes on for 7 days. Until finally, when Moshe says, I can't speak, I don't know how to talk, send somebody else. It says then that HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually gets upset with Moshe, Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. But then he says, I know your brother knows how to speak. So we're going to send him. He'll speak for you. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says this to Moshe Rabbeinu. Very interesting. He says, now, Moshe, I want you to go. Your brother, Aharon, is coming to see you. He's going to come and meet you. And when he sees you, he's going to be happy in his heart. Genuinely. Which is an interesting thing to say, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not just saying he's going to come meet you, he's telling him how he's going to feel about seeing you. And what he says is, and this is God testifying to his inner thoughts, right? So we recognize that this is true, that he's going to be genuinely happy in his heart when he sees you. Chazal raised the following points. They say, well, I'm sure he would be happy, but would it not be normal? Would it not be natural for there to be maybe a twinge of jealousy in Aharon's heart for Moshe Rabbeinu? Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu is younger. We know that he was younger. They went to Paro. We know obviously that he was born later, but it tells us their ages. How old was Moshe when he goes in to speak to Paro? That's a harder question. Who knows? 80. Moshe ben 80 shana ve'Aharon ben 80 shana b'dabaram el Paro. He's 80, Aharon is 83. Aharon is the older brother. Aharon spends his entire life worrying about, caring for, concerned with Bnei Israel. And who gets the job? His younger brother. Chazal say that the history of brothers in Klal Yisrael, or at least in terms of this point up until this point, is not great. But with Moshe Rabbeinu and Aharon, Hine matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. They were unique and special in this, that they had no concern, kin'ah, jealousy of any kind between them. And it was specifically Aharon that the Torah says his heart was completely full of joy for his brother. And there's only one way that that can happen. And that is that Aharon was completely and utterly whole and joyful in himself. And so he never thought in any other person that they had what he should. that in their life they were living something that he wanted to live. That they had attributes that he wished he had. It's unique. But Aharon's heart was complete and whole in who he was. And therefore he had no jealousies about anyone around him. To the contrary, it says that Aharon rooted for, prayed for, supported in every way everyone else's life and their achievements. Chazal say that Aharon Kohen saw the best in all of us and encouraged us to be the best that we possibly could be. So Hillel HaZaken says, Huvu mitamidav she'Aharon, be the students of Aharon, ohev shalom verodev shalom, ohev et habriot. Be like Aharon, he loved peace, he pursued peace, he wanted everybody to be able to be whole and complete together, which is what shalom means, comes from the root shalem, which means whole. Love all of the briot, love all of the created beings. So Chazal say that the names of the Shiftei Israel, of the tribes of Israel, are to be worn not on the chest of Aharon, but on the heart of Aharon. Lev Aharon. And they say as follows. Lev shesamach bigdulat achiv. The heart that was joyful in the greatness of his brother. Yisau Urim v'Tumim. Should be the heart that holds the Urim v'Tumim. That goes in on Yom Kippur lifnai v'lifnim. It goes in on Yom Kippur to the holiest of holies, stands before God, and pleads for the people that God should see the good in them. And there was nobody who was more fit to do that than Aharon Kohen. Why? Because he was complete and whole in himself. Because he loved himself. And therefore loved everyone else without a twinge of jealousy, kinah. And therefore God says to him, V'racha v'samach b'libo, says to Moshe, he's going to see you, he's going to be happy in his heart. I can tell you, Moshe, there's not a twinge of jealousy in your brother's heart for you. He's genuinely joyful. What does that have to do with Hanukkah? It has everything to do with Hanukkah. Because the ones who fought the Greeks on Hanukkah, of course, were the descendants of Aharon. They were the house of the Kohen Gadol. Bet Hashmonai, Kohen Gadol. They were the representatives of the legacy of Aharon, of the office of the Kohen Gadol. They were the ones who insisted that a war had to be fought, that a rebellion had to be launched and waged against the Greeks, mainly because there was a whole throng, a huge swath of Jewish people who were interested in the Greek way of life and their culture and their way. And it was the Kohen Gadol and his family who, pushed to the wall, finally said, we need to fight for our hearts and our souls and our identity, because there is nothing that anyone else has that belongs to us that we do not already have, that does not reside inside of us. And so the ones who fight that fight are the house of the Kohen Gadol, who are inheritors of that heart of Aharon Kohen, who recognize that in us, as we are, is everything that we will ever need, everything that we would ever truly want, and everything that we possibly could be. And that means that one of the most central elements of Hanukkah, the most important lessons of Hanukkah, is that we become the students of Aharon Kohen, the Bet Hashmonai, and not just worry about the kinah of others, because that's a harder thing to do, but we start first inside. We start first in ourselves. And we work on the love of self. And that sounds strange perhaps. But the reality is that even in the Torah, when it tells us to love others, it says, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And kamocha, of course, means as you love yourself. And everybody assumes that that's an easy thing to do, but it's not an easy thing to do if we are honest. Usually it's said, how am I going to love everybody like I love myself? Well, we can work on loving ourselves better. And that's not a selfish thing. It's an essential thing. Because without it, we can't be like Aharon. Hillel HaZaken, who said to us, Hivu mitalmidav shel Aharon, is also the Hillel HaZaken who says, Imen ani li mili. If I'm not going to be able to be there for myself, to do what it is that I need for myself, who will? Of course, that doesn't mean that I should not share myself, contribute of myself to the greater klal. When I'm only for myself, by myself, ma'ani, of course. But it always starts, Imen ani li mili. It is the same Hillel HaZaken who said in the Simchat Bet HaShoeva famously, Imani kan, akol kan. If I'm here, everything's here. That's not a selfish, not an arrogant thing to say. What Hillel was saying was, all I have is my own conscious awareness. All I have, ultimately, is my experience of the world. If I am here, everything is here. It's the same Hillel HaZaken who was running through the streets to do a task, and his Talmidim are following him, running after him and saying, Rebbe, where are you going? And Hillel says, I'm going to do a huge mitzvah. They say, what is it? He says, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to bathe. And they say, that's? And he says, we're created b'tzelem Elohim. We're created in the image of God. Should I not care for such a holy, precious image? And keep it with honor and respect? Talmidim Yikarim, the central element of Hanukkah is to care enough for yourself that you are willing to fight for yourself. And I'm going to close with 2 practical points. What does that mean? How does that look? How does it look to be able to speak like Hillel HaZaken and to live like Aharon, Kohen Gadol? So that we could genuinely be able to be embracing and whole with all things. It starts with the love of self, and here are 2 practical things that I will share with you, and with that I will close. Number 1. The reality is that if we think about ourselves, there are parts to ourselves. Sometimes we feel one way in the morning, we feel a completely different way in the evening. We feel one way at the beginning of the week, completely different way towards the later parts of the week. And what is that? There are diverse elements within us. We are complex creations. There are parts of ourselves who are very, very happy to share with others, to express and to put out there. And there are parts of ourselves, if we are honest with ourselves, that we are not so clearly happy, proud of. We sequester those aspects of ourselves, perhaps in the dungeons of our inner parts. And what is important for us to know is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the entirety of who we are. He did it. And it is our job to be able to find how all the parts of ourselves can be focused and integrated into becoming whole and good and complete. And the way to do it is not to cut parts of ourselves away, but to see them, look at them, recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us. And that if we are to honor ourselves, we are to honor our whole selves. And learn. This is life's work. It doesn't happen overnight, but learn how to see them, love those parts, and integrate them. Because all of it is the nishmat chayim, is the soul of life that was blown into us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu bichvado v'atzmo. That's 1. And 2, practically speaking, this next week and this next Hanukkah, pay attention to this. How do you speak to yourself? What is the voice in your head that talks to you like? Is it critical? Oppressive? Does it persecute you? Does it call you an idiot? Does it say negative things to you? Think about it. Listen to it. And then consider this. If you had somebody younger than you in your care that you had to take care of, would you treat that younger person that you had to take care of how you treat you? Would you feed that person what you feed yourself? Would you care for the sleep of that person the way that you care for the sleep of yourself? Would you talk to that younger person the way you talk to yourself? Just consider the question. And then consider how it is that you care for you. And that is a good litmus test. It's a good way to think about how it is that we are genuinely loving ourselves, the kamocha part of ve'afta l'ra'acha, so that we can do it for others. Because here's the thing. We cannot truly do it for others if we don't know how to do it for ourselves. And that is the lesson of Aharon, the Kohen Gadol. That is a central element of Hanukkah. And if it was not that we had that, we would not fight the fight, we would not have won the war, and we wouldn't have been able to light the ner. That is the flame within us all. And I don't just mean that poetically. It's a pasuk. Ner Hashem nishmat Adam. The flame of God is the soul of man. And that is the light that we light on Hanukkah. I wish everybody a good rest of the week, and thank you so much for your kind time and presence here, and I wish you a Hanukkah Sameach. B'ezrat Hashem.